Welcome back, friends. In this session, now we are going to focus on concordance analysis. We can say it's like entering the heartbeat of a language, one line at a time. In the previous session, we covered keyword analysis. Now we are going to focus on concordance analysis. I welcome you in this particular session. Now let's understand why concordance is the linguist's microscope. Why so much weightage, so much significance is given to this particular part. Friends, when we talk about concordance analysis, we actually go one step deeper, one level deeper. Concordance analysis allows us to see how the word behaves, how it breathes, how it sustains, and it interacts with other surroundings. The legal professions or law students might come across to the phrase "justum generis," company of the words. It's more like this. If keyword analysis is a single or a wide angle lens, then concordance is like a microscope. It shows the immediate context around words line by line. It reveals the patterns, habits, deception patterns, various clues, emotional shifts, and authorship signature. So if you just compare keyword analysis and concordance analysis together, keyword analysis tells us which words are unusually frequent, while the concordance analysis tells us how those words are actually used line by line in real sentences. So now let's focus on what is concordance analysis. Friends, concordance analysis displays all occurrences of a specific word or a phrase from your corpus. It shows how it is used and with what surrounding it changes. This lineup is called KWIC, KWIC. That means keywords in context. It allows us to examine patterns that are too subtle, too micro for human eyes in normal reading. Concordance doesn't just show what people say, it shows us how they say it, when they say it, what matches and deviates from typical behavior. I'll give you a simple example. Let's consider this scenario. Suppose a person keeps using the word accident in their statement. Now, if you just apply keyword analysis, that what we dealt in the last section, keyword analysis tells us the word accident appears unusually often because we are focusing upon the frequency in which the word is used unusually. But concordance analysis shows us how the word behaves. Now the word is accident. Consider some various statements that I am telling you. Statement number 1, it was an accident, sir. Statement 2, it happened by accident, I simply did not intend it. Third, it was just an accident, no one is responsible. Now consider these three sentences in which the word accident is common. Now notice the pattern. Across all these three sentences, the word accident is used and the harm is also admitted, but the speaker is removing his responsibility and thereby keeping himself away from the intention. It was an accident, sir. That means I don't know how it happened. It happened by accident. I did not intend it. It's just simply blaming the sequence or situation. A third, it was just an accident. No one is responsible. Here is more giving attention to the action and keeping anybody involving in that particular incident. So here concordance analysis helps us understanding these nuances. So the question comes, why concordance is so much important in forensic linguistics? Friends, again I am underlining the same important insight that every minute detail matters. Even the tiny clues matter. A threatening phrase repeatedly or subtly appearing across multiple messages, a unique idiom used by one suspect, a particular way of attaching disclaimers or politeness markers may strike a doubt that why it is used. Concordance analysis exposes these recurring habits, and sometimes the court also appreciates concordance evidence because it is visible, it is objective, it is reproducible and easy to explain. A judge can see line by line how a suspect's linguistic fingerprint appears across the text. Concordance reveals those patterns which are not noticeable by just plain or raw kind of reading. When we read text normally, we rarely notice subtle inconsistencies, but concordance reveals it. It reveals recurrent collocations, preferred grammatical frames, consistent metaphor usage, habitual politeness structures, lexical bundles such as I said before, having said that, to my dismay, or let me tell you, you must understand, you see, I see, these kind of things. These become markers of authorship, personality and psychological state. Friends, that takes us to the conclusion that concordance analysis requires a good reading skills as well. A plain reading might not yield you anything, but if you read twice, thrice, those subtle clues might appear in front of your eyes. And that's why when we read a text normally, we read it for meaning. We don't read it for patterns. But concordance analysis gives us that opportunity to identify the patterns. I'm giving you a simple example again. Let's understand. Consider the phrase, you must understand. Now, based upon this phrase, I'm giving you 3 examples. Example 1, you must understand I had no intention. Example number 2, you must understand the situation was difficult. Example number 3, you must understand I did not plan it. Now, in these 3 examples, across these 3 examples, the phrase you must understand is common, but it is followed by different intentions. In example number 1, it has a recurrent collocation. You must understand always appears before justification. I had no intention, that is a justification. Secondly, interpretative explanation. You must understand the situation was difficult. Here you are explaining something else. Third, consistent metaphor. The speaker positions himself as a teacher and not as an accused. You must understand, I did not plan it. So here, the habitual politeness structure, the phrase stands respectful but actually controls the listener. By saying these phrases, you are actually controlling the listener. Now let's understand step by step how concordance analysis can be done with the help of tools like NPTEL-NOC or Landsbox. These are the steps. Step number 1, in order to conduct concordance analysis, firstly you have to input your corpus into the software. It's like giving feeds or feeding the software. So for example, if you have a small corpus, say 5 written statements by the same person, you can give input of these sentences to the software. Step number 2, select your target word or phrase. Now I am giving you an example. You have actually, step number 1 you have followed. You have given inputs to the software, input of 5 statements given by one same person, and now you are choosing the target phrase as I said before. This is a phrase that you have set as I said before. Okay, now the next third step is to generate aligned concordance lines, sort by left or right context. Now the software will do this part. So you have said the phrase as I said before. Based upon this, the software will process the data and it will identify certain lines. Now I am giving you an example. For example, software can identify 3 types of sentences. Firstly, as I said before, I had no intention. Number 1. Number 2, as I said before, I was not present there. And number 3, as I said before, I simply don't remember any detail. So this is a step number 3 that is followed by the software, and you have come across to these 3 patterns. Now the fourth step is to identify the patterns across dozens or hundreds of occurrences. So here the software will use the markers and sort these lines by the words that come after the phrases. So if you see, every time the phrase appears, it is followed by either a denial or a justification. So this way, the concordance analysis transforms chaotic text, mismatched text into a structured behavioral indicators. Here we can say a messy set of statements become structured evidence. Here the phrase is not just a casual occurrence, but here it is a defensive reflex. And that is why this is how the concordance analysis turns the scattered language into behavioral patterns. It shows you that every single nuance that a person has used. Now we will move towards understanding collocations through concordance. Collocations are words that frequently appear together. For example, deeply sorry, very sorry, I assure you, I promise you. These habitual pairings often reveal identity, emotional state, linguistic background, or deception. Concordance allows us to confirm whether these collocations are unique to one individual or common across the corpus. Now let's take an example of concordance in a hate speech trial. In an anonymized hate speech case, the accused argued that a particular derogatory term was used jokingly within his online community. So concordance analysis showed that across hundreds of comments, he used the term only to hostile the context or aimed at specific individual. Here you can apply the keywords in context filter. Here it demonstrates consistent aggressive patterns, undermining the defenses. The court accepted concordance visualization as a credible linguistic evidence. Let's take another case example in which concordance can expose deceptive denials. For example, in a fraud investigation, the suspect frequently used the phrases "to be honest" before giving an explanation. That gives a psychological assurance to the next person when he hears that what kind of explanation is followed after this, "to be honest." Concordance analysis reveals that a phrase appeared consistently before misleading or contradictory statements. This pattern suggests strategic distancing and deceptive framing. It was not conclusive proof of guilt, but definitely it could be a behavioral clue that guides the deeper questioning. Let's take another example of writer identification in an anonymous blog. Sometimes we come across anonymous writings, blogs on internet, and we tend to identify, we get curious that who must have authored this. So in a case in which investigators used the concordance analysis to compare the metaphors, transitional phrases, and those rhythmic patterns across writings from a suspect. And that's how you link that anonymous blog, online blog, to the suspected person. The suspect's unique use of expressions like time will unfold the truth, these kind of dramatized, contextualized lines, or if the memory serves me right, these kind of phrases appeared repeatedly in his blogs. Here we are not talking about a single blog containing these phrases, but multiple blogs involving the same kind of phraseologies. The concordance rows visually demonstrated that the same linguistic fingerprint ran across both sources, the specimen that is in your hand and various other blogs that you may want to compare with. Let's also understand how concordance helps identifying manipulated or planted text. Concordance analysis often reveals unnatural phrasing or collocations in fabricated documents. For example, in a suicide note that might contain no emotional collocations, or a forged threat might lack consistent vocabulary seen in suspects or the writings. So here concordance analysis exposes the mismatches. When a planted text does not align linguistically with authentic samples, the discrepancy becomes courtroom evidence, because when you examine the witness, contradiction play a very vital role. Version after version, various statements that may change, sometimes the additions are there, sometimes material alterations are there, sometimes substantial alterations are there, sometimes omissions are there. All these matter when it comes to concordance analysis. Concordance is also important in investigative journalism and media forensics, because beyond criminal cases, concordance helps the journalist and researchers. It helps to detect manipulated quotes, altered transcripts, recycled propaganda phrases, and shifts in tone during political speeches. These days, newsrooms are increasingly relying on concordance visualization to verify authenticity and expose narrative engineering. Fake news or hoax news are quite often in today's times. There, concordance analysis can be much helpful. We must also understand, friends, now about avoiding over-interpretation of concordance data, because there is a risk that a person may cross that ethical norm. While concordance reveals patterns, interpretation must remain cautious. A repeated phrase may reflect habit and not the intention, because there is a risk. And therefore, a collocation may appear due to topic and not by the identity. Ethical practice requires balanced analysis, contextual awareness, and explicit acknowledgement of limitations. After all, concordance is powerful, but it must never be used irresponsibly. Now, when we have focused upon concordance analysis, one thing is quite clear, that concordance makes the invisible things visible. Thank you very much for joining in this session, friends. Concordance analysis, as we have seen, turns scattered text into structural patterns, it allowing you to see what lies beneath the surface. It reveals linguistic fingerprints, emotional rhythms, authorship clues, and behavioral cues that ordinary reading might miss. In the very next video, we will explore collocation analysis. We will examine the relationship between words and uncover deeper insights into meaning, persuasion, and manipulation. Thank you very much.